This is the new Hyundai Tucson. That's Tucson and not Tucson or Tucson. And it is a very, very important car. You see, it occupies the same space in the market as the Nissan Qashqai, which is one of Britain's best-selling cars. But like many of the Tucson's rivals, they're all getting a little bit long in the tooth. And this is the perfect opportunity for Hyundai to steal some of the wind from Nissan's sails. And Yes Auto UK are among the very first in Britain to get behind the wheel. But before I get into the review, remember to hit the like button and subscribe for more awesome videos just like this one. The new Tucson isn't just a facelifted car, it's a brand new model, and with it comes a radically different design. This front end, for instance, is all new and it looks absolutely incredible and incorporates this really cool LED light cluster. Now, it also serves as a bit of a statement of intent because Hyundai is basically trying to tell the world that it can compete against the likes of VW and other premium car makers, and I think this front end sums it up really well. Now, the rest of the car is quite complicated to look at, in all fairness. It reminds me a little bit of the Toyota RAV4 and the Lexus NX, of where you've got lots of creases. I mean, you've got a big triangle there and a line going down there and an angle there. It looks, on the one hand, quite muscly, but on the other, it almost looks like someone took a clean piece of paper, scrunched it up, and then stuck it to the side of the car. Not sure I'm the biggest fan. Impressively, Hyundai's managed to squeeze a bit more space into the back of the Tucson. So it now has 620 litres of storage, and that works out really well compared to its key competitors. However, you only get 620 litres in the petrol car. If you go for the diesel or the hybrid, it's a little bit smaller. Still, you get a nifty little loading box underneath the boot floor, and you can also stow the luggage cover down here as well. There's something going on here. Is it just me, or does the Tucson look a little bit like a Ford Mustang Mach-E from the rear, mainly these tail lights? And that's strange because I recently drove the Kia Sorento and that looked a lot like a Ford Mustang at the back. And you know, Hyundai and Kia are owned by the same parent company. Admittedly, it's not one of the strongest motoring conspiracy theories in the world. At launch, the Tucson engine lineup comprises of a 1.6 litre petrol engine. Now, in the cheapest cars, it comes with a manual gearbox and front-wheel drive. And if you go above that, you get a 48-volt mild hybrid system thrown into the mix. And the one above that, providing you spec the ultimate trim, comes with 178 brake horsepower, and power is sent to all four wheels. But this one right here is the hybrid, which develops 227 brake horsepower. But there's even more, because later this year, Hyundai will release a plug-in hybrid variant of this, which throws out a whopping 261 brake horsepower. Now, the new Tucson actually costs a bit more than the old version. Now, prices start at £28,500, and for that you get rear parking sensors, forward collision warning system, as well as smartphone connectivity. Pay a little bit more and you get front parking sensors thrown in, as well as a beefed up sound system and a heated steering wheel. Then there's the Ultimate, which costs £32,900, and for that you get tri-zone climate control as well as fancy LED headlights. If you go for the hybrid model, all of those prices take a little bit of a hike. So where the petrol engines stop, the hybrid takes over. Hyundai has made some real strides with the interior of this car. Not only is it better than the old version, but it actually feels nicer than a lot of Hyundais on sale today. And the reason is they've nailed the touch points. So this steering wheel feels really lovely. It's got a lovely leather effect to it, and the overall design is super premium, and it just screams quality, which is not really what you could have said about Hyundai before. And also you're surrounded by technology, which makes this car feel a lot more techy and futuristic than its predecessor. There are still some Hyundai hallmarks in here. The plastic in the centre console feels pretty cheap, and also this feels a little bit on the flimsy side. And the design, while a step up, is still a bit dull. Everything's just a bit grey in here. Although I have seen a trim level where you can get cream leather seats. However, I've not seen that as an option in the UK market at the moment, but hopefully it'll be available soon, because it is a vast improvement over what you get in here. One of the big new things about this Tucson is the upgraded tech, and it's highlighted by this 10-inch infotainment system. Now, on the surface, it's vastly improved over its predecessor. Not only is it more vibrant, but it's also very colourful and super responsive. It's a bit complicated though. There's quite a lot of information displayed on the screen, and it's all quite small. So while the panel's quite wide, it's very thin. Below that, you've got some shortcuts. However, they're touch surfaces instead of physical buttons, and unfortunately, there's no feedback when you press something other than a small beep that plays. The good thing is there are some physical buttons, and people who watch this channel will know that I like having some kind of physical buttons in a car, because it just means that you're not spending most of your drive looking at your screen and you can focus on the road. So for the heated seats and heated steering wheel, you have a few physical buttons down here, but really I would like just a few more physical buttons to press for the climate settings. That being said, the digital cockpit is a big improvement. Not only does it look really sharp, but it's got some really neat features. For instance, if I were to indicate left or right, the left or right dial will actually show me a camera pointing back on the wing mirror so that I don't crash into somebody. That's really cool, and it first appeared on Kia's new Sorento, so a really decent feature. What's more, it's kind of got this Mercedes-like look to it, of where it's just a small little tablet that's perched on top of the dashboard. There's not even a cover, which actually improves visibility and just makes the cabin feel a bit more airy. If, like me, you still use regular USB cables to charge up your phone, then you're in luck, because you've got two standard USB ports down here, as well as a 12-volt charger, and there's also a wireless charging pad down there as well. Now, further back, we've got two nice, sizable cup holders that have got grips in them, so your drink won't go flying over your passenger in a bumpy road. And behind that, we've got a nice big storage bin. Well, there's no ports in there, so you can't charge up anything in the bin. Now, to finish things off, we have a small pocket to my left in the center console, which I guess could be used to store keys. And on the right is a nice big door bin and has enough room for a big drink. If you're stuck in traffic and you're feeling particularly stressed, then you can put on some calming music. But you left your iPhone or iPod at home and you've got nothing to listen to. Well, the Hyundai Tucson has you covered, because it has an app called Sounds of Nature. And if you go on the Sounds of Nature app, you can listen to calm ocean waves, or an open air cafe, which is just basically people cleaning up in the kitchen, or a snowy village. The Tucson is a nice big family SUV, so I've got loads of space back here. Even with a panoramic roof, I've got plenty of headroom, and just for reference, I'm 180 centimetres, so yes, average height. And the driver's seat is in my position, and legroom, we're doing absolutely fine here. So if you're 6 foot and over, you should have no problem sitting in the Hyundai Tucson. But what's really cool back here is that the rear seats are actually reclining, so you can relax on a long journey. Or if you've got to concentrate, you can sit bolt upright. Either way, the option's there. Through the magic of editing, our Tucson test car is going to turn from a reddy maroon to a bluey grey. Now, I'm in the hybrid Tucson, but it's worth bearing in mind that there are actually 3 different types of hybrid Tucson. There's the 48 volt mild hybrid, which kind of gives you an electric boost when you're pulling away from a standstill. Then there's this version, which will give you electric only running at kind of lower speeds, but when you put your foot down, the petrol engine kicks in. And then there's the plug-in hybrid, which is going to arrive later this year, and that'll allow you to drive up to a certain distance on electric energy alone, and you can also top it up by plugging it into a wall socket. Now with this regular hybrid, we get a pretty punchy 227 brake horsepower, and it's also connected up to a 7-speed dual clutch gearbox. And the two work in combination really well. This is a pretty nippy thing. You know, it's a very cold and very wet day today, and if you're a little bit heavy on the accelerator when pulling out of a junction, it's actually really easy to spin the front wheels up. And what's more, there's actually a sport mode in here. So if you whack it into sport mode, the steering becomes a smidgen heavier, but also the throttle response becomes much sharper. So just even the smallest dab of the accelerator will kind of push you to the back of your seat. Sporty. The steering is, as you'd expect, super light, a little bit numb, but there's enough weight there to give you an idea of the car's grip, and that's a really important thing. The car doesn't need to be brimming with feel, but you need to be able to steer it and point it in the direction you want to go with confidence. You know, the Tucson is a pretty big car, but this steering does make it feel really easy to maneuver, and that's the important thing at the end of the day. The ride is also pretty good. I'm getting a few little jolts here and there coming through into the cabin, but otherwise on most roads this is going to be a nice, smooth and calm place to be, especially if you put on your natural sound soundtrack that comes with the car. Now, having spent a bit of time with this Tucson, I can say that this new infotainment system is very good looking, but it really is quite complicated to use. Now, on the plus side, there are shortcuts, so you don't have to go through the infotainment system to get to all the settings you want. The problem is there are so many shortcuts that it actually clutters up quite a lot of the dash. So it does mean that if you're trying to operate something on the move, it can really be quite tricky. So I'm not a big fan of the infotainment system, but I love this virtual cockpit, and it comes on all cars, no matter which one you buy. And what I particularly like about it is the blind spot cameras that appear when you indicate left or right. I'd love to see that on some other cars. It is a really neat feature. You've also got a few driver assistance modes on here, including active cruise control. So if you're driving along the motorway and you set your cruise to 70, and the car in front of you starts to slow down, you'll slow down as well, so you can either make a quick overtake or you don't plough into the back of them. You've also got a forward collision warning system on here, so if the car thinks you might have a crash, it'll say, put the brakes on, you're going to have a crash. Or, if you're about to have a crash and the car knows you're going to have a crash, it'll slam the brakes on for you. Which is good to know. I'm being looked after by Hyundai. And not just that, you also get a 5-year warranty with this as well, which doesn't quite match that of Kia, which is a little odd because Kia and Hyundai are part of the same company, but it's still pretty decent. But I think what this Tucson is all about is moving Hyundai forwards. This really does feel like a bit of a watershed car for the company. Something that does feel like a significant step beyond what they've been able to do before. And having driven my fair share of Hyundais, this really does feel like a vastly more impressive car. I don't know how it will compare with the new Nissan Qashqai because, well, it's not out yet. But this new Tucson is more expensive than the older version. It's about £5,000 more in total. And that actually puts it in contention with the likes of the Volkswagen Tiguan, which is a superb car. It really is very, very good. What I will say though is it still feels like it's good value for money, and even though it's more expensive, you're getting a vastly more premium feeling car, both inside the cabin and just overall in the driving experience. You know, my first car was a 2002 Hyundai Accent, which I bought as a 17-year-old in 2010. And even then, it felt really cheap and very grey and very plasticky. And while Hyundais have come on leaps and bounds, even some of their newer stuff still feels like it's got that cheap grey feel to it. But this new Tucson has really shrugged it off. This does feel like a big step forwards for the company, and I'm sure it's going to give the new Qashqai a bit of a headache